Welcome to The Planet Forward with Preetha, conversations for a greener future, the place where we ignite discussions and uncover innovations driving us towards sustainability. Every episode, join your host Preetha as we explore the stories, ideas, and pioneers making a real difference in our world. Get ready to be inspired, learn, and be a part of the change that propels us forward to a greener tomorrow.
Welcome to Planet Forward with Preetha, Conversations for a Greener Future, where we spotlight the champions leading the charge towards a more equitable, sustainable world. Today's episode shines a light on an extraordinary advocate for gender justice, equity, and the powerful force of women's empowerment. Tsegga Medhin stands at the forefront of empowering change makers across the globe through her innovative leadership and engagement institute, the Pearl Leadership Institute. With its core focus on gender equity, the Institute serves as an online platform dedicated to bolstering leaders in STEM space around the world. Tsegga's vision extends beyond mere education. She advocates for a collaborative approach among governments, the private sector, academia, and civil society. Her mission is clear: to harness our collective wisdom to eradicate poverty and ensure the equitable enjoyment of peace and prosperity for all. As the recognized thought leader and public speaker, Tsegga's contributions to building a better world are profound. Her expertise as a certified executive coach in women's leadership and engagement has led her to advise a wide range of clients, from individuals seeking personal growth to international organizations aiming for significant social impact. Her advisory work spans across private and public sectors, including influential roles within various African nations. Tsegga's professional journey is marked by over 2 decades of experience in leading corporations such as IBM, Credit Suisse, and Wells Fargo, alongside her impactful advocacy work with UN Women USA. Her dedication to social impact and STEM education led her to represent women entrepreneurs and STEM careers at the United Nations SDG 2030 stakeholders meeting, showcasing her commitment to global development and women's empowerment. Her academic achievements include graduating from the Harvard School of Public Policy, Leadership and Ethics, and the UCLA Executive Leadership Anderson School of Management, underlining her continuous pursuit of knowledge and excellence. Tsegga's community impact has not gone unrecognized. She is a recipient of the Presidential Gold Volunteers Award, bestowed by the Presidents Barack Obama and George Bush, a testament to her dedication and transformative influence on her communities around the world. Tsegga Medhin continues to inspire us as a practitioner of purpose, driving forward initiatives that not only envision but actively create a better, more equitable future for our planet. Welcome, Tsegga. I'm so thrilled to have you to Planet Forward today.
Wow, thank you, Preetha. You're so kind, and I appreciate the kind introduction. I'm excited to be in your company and the change makers that you've been influencing and making sure that things are in the right place. We are looking at strategic thinking, acting, and influencing as being one of the core values that you and I have. And that's how you and I met. So I thank you for that introduction.
Thank you so much, Tsegga. So the first question today I have for you is about your leadership and career journey. Can you share with us the pivotal moments that have shaped your leadership journey? And what challenges did you face as you transitioned from different roles, and how did you overcome them? As a seasoned leader, what key qualities do you believe are essential for effective leadership in today's world?
Thank you for this question. I think one of the reasons why you and I connected, obviously, there is a shared agenda of really making a difference by being the difference. And so one of the things that shaped my career and my purposeful living right now is making not only the business case for women empowerment, because for me, it's not only the right thing to do, but it's also the economic thing to do. And you and I agree on this, and the many women that work on the women empowerment, that technology has been one of the pivotal things for me, because I went to school, my undergrad was in computer science. And so I knew that technology will change the narrative, and we will own this narrative to make that difference again. So for you and I and the many women, again, as an advocate for women's empowerment, is that I continue, and you and I continue to stand in inquiry, seeking an answer for our why. Why are we doing? Why are we doing what we're doing? And so, why are we passionate about this? Is because, and why do we do this? It's because we believe the women's role as builders of economic prosperity, peace for people and planet, it happens through the strong partnership that we have to have, and that you and I have created also in these conversations. I mean, you know that the McKinsey, so the McKinsey Global Insight says that it could be the involvement of women and the engagement of women could add a $12 trillion to the global growth by 2025, which is not far.
It's just a year away.
It's a year away. And so 12 trillion is a lot. 12 trillion, you know, is a lot of money, and it's a lot of economic empowerment that we need to keep on pushing the agenda of making sure that we are just moving not only our own communities, but I think the global reach that you're trying to do with Planet Forward as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Tsegga. That is indeed right. And, you know, when a collective force, just imagine all the collective forces, women come together, what an impact we can make on this world positively, right? For us and for the future generations. So I'm really glad that you said that. So moving on to women empowerment, I think it's a perfect segue. In your experience, what are the most significant barriers to women's empowerment and leadership? And how can we address them?
So, you know, as gender becomes, the work that I do is gender focused. And I say that because I said in the previous statement, I think sometimes you find to be you are the only one in the room. And so gender diversity representation in the technology especially is quite low. I mean, 3 out of 10 people only, that's very small. And so we also face the barriers to entry, access to education, unequal pay, gender bias, emotional labor, you know, all these kinds of delayed promotions, lack of salary increase because of maternity leave, for example, is another issue. And so while we are in this space, I think we need to interrogate this moment where we could make a difference, add to that $12 trillion that we spoke about earlier. And so, and our mental well-being also is something that we need to be quite careful. And really, I think as we were talking earlier, also we talked about like how much we care for our family and for our work. So this multitasking thing seems to be, is no longer a multitasking. And so it's becoming much more stressful, where women are leaving the area of business in droves. And that's not something that nobody would like to have, whether it's somebody creating their own company or somebody that's working with us. Corporations or entities should not be losing this amazing force of resources because it's quite detrimental to their own space. So, but once we get into the place of where we're going to be recognized and also contributing to the community and to the businesses, we're going to be, our children, our girls, or our boys for that matter, will always look at us as being the great role models that they need. And so by that we are more of the CIO, the Chief Inspiring Officer. Chief Inspiring Officer, not Chief Innovation Officers. I just want us to be the inspiring officers that we become for me, for our daughters. And then, so we definitely need some outreach programs, hackathons, coding clubs, and things of that nature are going to be the ones that are going to make a difference.
So moving on to the same thing. So how does the Pearl Leadership Institute work towards empowering women and girls? Can you share a success story? And what advice do you have for young women aspiring to leadership roles in their careers or communities?
Okay, so let me give a bit of a background what the Pearl Leadership Institute is and how it came about. In 2009, IBM selected myself and about 100 people out of the 5,000 applicants that they had to do professional development and top talent assignment. So it was a 6 months assignment, international assignment, where we were supposed to be working for different kind of NGOs across the globe. We were the first 100, and this is something called the IBM Corporate Service Corps, which has taken its progress across many companies. And so it was a personal development as well as a professional development for me. Now, when I left Africa, which is where I come from, a small country in the eastern part, I did not have the same kind of education, the same kind of awareness, the same kind of ability to make a difference. So when I went back with the background that I had educationally as well as professionally to really do work with an NGO in Tanzania, I felt like I'm missing something. There needs to be a purpose, and there needs the purpose for me to live in this world. And finding out as a side project, which I created, I was working in the corporate social responsibility space. I said, maybe what we need to do is we need to bring some kids from the neighborhood kids and find out exactly. So I was able to find a school that we could partner. So it was a side project on top of our real project. And when I went to the schools and I realized that I was looking for an entry for these kids to understand what it's like to be a technologist, what it's like to become a person. So fast forward, we did that stint for 6 months across Africa, East Africa and Tanzania. Then when I came back, I did not want to work for IBM any longer. I just said, no, life has to be different. Life has to be different. I've got enough to give. And so that's how the Pearl Leadership Institute was created. And the name The Pearl was also given because a pearl is, as you know, the creation of a pearl is out of a lot of movements and some kind of impurities that need to come and go within the shell itself. And then once the shell is good, comes out, and hence the pearl.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how we became the Pearl Leadership Institute. So since 2009, this has been my purpose. So what we do is we work with women and girls in STEM, and STEM meaning science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And the science, because that's where the living wages are. And art is because it's about innovation, it's about creativity. And so if we keep on having a mentorship program, if we keep on giving kids, girls or boys, access to those kinds of barriers that we talked about, chances are that they will change the narrative. We will change the narrative for them and they will own that narrative. And that's why we feel we're doing that. So my work since 2009 has been more about giving access to we partner with Duke University, we partner with Triangle Women in STEM, which is an organization that is combined with so many, close to 220 companies, over 500-600 employees that really become part of our volunteer army. And then we do days of STEM with Duke, like one day where there's a parents forum. I also take some kids to different kind of companies, like we do a project with Apple, where we let them go for a coding program in there. And we also do some kind of leadership program working with the city of Raleigh or state, the county, where they have some projects for girls to understand that we could be all engaged in these things. But if we do not have the policy component to it, because we need to have the buy-in, not only from companies, but also from our legislator. And so that's one of the reasons why actually during COVID, I decided, you know what, I like this STEM thing, but I need to have some kind of stakeholders advancement. So that's why I went back to school, and when Harvard accepted me for that program, where the leadership in public policy plays, I wanted to understand how does one really develop policy? How does one really find the right stakeholders? How do we come up to fruition the theory of change that we want to make and practice? So all in all, the Pearl Leadership Institute has been a place where it would help career development, because it's a key differentiator, and unlock the productivity of our children as well as that of women. I also coach women executives and women of different space. So that's where we are.
Wow, what a beautiful story. That's so inspiring, Tsegga, because you made sure that you were ready to take a change at a very crucial part of your career, and you know exactly what you wanted, and you went after it. And then you realize there is a gap wherein you didn't understand how this policy changes worked. So you went back to school, you learned about it, and then you're making sure that you're imparting knowledge, whatever you acquired at Harvard, and putting that into motion, and also teaching the younger children and other women in leadership positions and various, capacity to see that if what they can do in their own respective careers to bring about the policy change. Oh my God, it's mind blowing to see what you've done. Thank you so much for telling that story. And when you're talking, I'm just reading through it. I'm like going through, point A to point B to point C, and I'm trying to put all the things together. And I'm like, incredible what you've done. That's
thank
amazing.
you.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
So, just continuing the conversation on technology and innovation, you told that technology is completely going to change the way the world is progressing. So how have you seen technology transform the landscape of women's empowerment and leadership development? With your passion for technology and innovative thinking, what emerging technologies do you think hold the most promise for solving complex problems in society today? And what role does innovation play in driving gender equity in the workplace and in communities?
The most important thing that we need to look at in this, we're in an era of change. Change also brings a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
It's challenging, but then again, it's also a place where we need to really figure out how do we make sure that we're showing up where we are expected, and making sure that the social atrophy that we have is not going to hold us hostage to do something that we don't want to do. So it's a place where we have, for us to make sure that we have some kind of accountability rise. And so the technology component, the most important thing that I'm seeing right now that we need to be really focused on is collaboration. Collaboration, like you and I, we've done it a couple of times now. It seems like the way we're looking at in promoting the technology. First of all, I think when we have the emphasis of the importance of collaboration, I think the next step would be obviously to enhance capacity building for all by promoting technology transfer and creating and enabling an environment of sustainable development. Because when we do not engage stakeholders, I think it's a miss for all of us. And so what I find is the most important thing that we need to work on right now is obviously, and the big elephant in the room, in the streets and everywhere, is artificial intelligence.
Yes, that's correct.
And so how do we really take that on with a human approach, not with fear, but with the opportunity to really turn fear into a way for us to make a higher purpose for all of us? Because I think as you also are in the technology space and you're really interested in that area,
yes,
where I'm finding an opportunity, again, for that $12 trillion to the global economy, I think our role at this point is obviously to bring about and enhance the capacity building and making really everybody understand what does artificial intelligence mean for all of us. Having the focus and the players and the process and the outcomes in the right, without any kind of asymmetry, to keep on focusing on what that means for all of us. And so identifying our stakeholders, understanding our stakeholders' expectations, what they are, and our stakeholders are many. Our children are important, for example, right now, where most of this artificial technology right now, and I just had a meeting not long ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, where the UN was asking any kind of meeting with stakeholders, what does that mean for all of us about the Sustainable Development Goal plans? One of the things that I shared was that, okay, artificial intelligence is important and nobody should be worried about it. But I think what we need to understand is that whoever is coding artificial intelligence right now is the adults, and it is future technology. So how much of that future technology is taking the stakeholders, which are the young people? And so how much of the needs of those people are going to be
considered,
engaged. The objective and the outcomes of this is going to be what? And so how do we choose our engagement methods and models and channels? And how do we communicate this clearly and consistently, not only with the young people, but also with the parents? And so how do we really mitigate the risk of having something amiss so we don't have I don't want us to be a fault finders. We need to find hope and technology that's going to make us better and continue to have an environment of development, which is obviously defined by the Sustainable Development Plans, that rests in the economic development, social and environment protection. So how do we do that? What are the things that we need to do? So we have to bring all the stakeholders on each platform with the COP28, for example. That was the thing. And have also an interest in ethics. Artificial intelligence.
Definitely ethics.
Yeah.
And, I'm just thinking through loud when you were talking about the stakeholders, which is so important, especially the younger generation. You brought up a valid point, because the folks who are coding artificial intelligence right now are adults. Yeah. But the younger generation today, they are going to be the recipients of whatever is going to be created right now. If we do not take their world into accountability when we are actually coding for the future, when they are actually going to experience it, they may not like it, or it may not be the right approach for them. So how do you make sure that you are including them as well as the parents, because they also need to be educated what they're going to be given in the future. So it should be an inclusive approach, not the other way around. So I think you brought up a valid point, and I think it's AI has also taken it as in a negative aspect. What I would say is, just like you said, look at it, that is our future. How do we make sure that the future, what we are all marching towards, is bringing every stakeholder into the picture, including our younger children, so that they are part of it, so that our future is much more sustainable. And you said about ethics, right? We've got to definitely take into consideration about that. That's very important. When the world itself is gearing towards ESG, how do we make sure that all these components of environment, social governance is brought under one umbrella? Thank you so much. That was a very brilliant answer. And I'm so glad that you also brought it up in the UN as well, because more and more people need to be aware of this change, which is coming towards us, and how do we all actively engage in it, so it's a more equitable future for our future generations. So it's wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Tsegga.
Yeah, and it's also critical that women play a deep role in making decisions that shape the future of artificial intelligence in companies and in business and in their own homes, because I think driving inclusion, is important, but it's not for the sake of inclusion or just to plaster it on companies' website to say we have this the diversity and equity staff. It has to be intentional. The attention is there, but the intention has to come with the attention as well.
I think you're bringing a valid point, and nowadays it's become more of like a how do I say it, an advertising thing, like I have enough women, 50% of the art directors are women. But yeah, it is nice to have that on the poster, but are they actually having a voice on the board? That's a totally different question. We can have, they are awarding seats at the table, which is good, which we have come a long way, but are they having a voice? That's another question. So you brought up a very good point. So it needs to be more intentional rather than just having it for the sake of saying that, oh, we have 50% women on our board to satisfy what ESG demands, right? But that's not the way. We need to also have a voice. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to integrate purpose into the company's brands. I think that's important because that's an investment in the talent practices. So
very true, very true. Yeah. So I think I'm just simply loving the answers, what I'm getting. So thank you so much, Tsegga. So going forward, the next one is around environmental sustainability, aligning with ESG.
Yes.
So in your work, how do you align environmental sustainability goals with broader objectives for social and governance change? Can you discuss any initiatives you've been involved With that, combine technology and environmental sustainability for a greater impact. How can organizations more effectively integrate ESG principles to their core operations and culture?
Okay. Well, you know, these words that are coming in, ESG, DEI, and whatever we listen to, they seem to be good nomenclatures, but I want us to have a serious consideration about having the intentionality behind them, because it's important. It's important not because we say it's important, but it's important because it's part of our future. And our future is that, you know, many people today are investing in companies at a greater speed.
Mhm.
But the majority of the people that had money were older people, and so they didn't have this vision of really buying into companies because they had the ESG, obviously the environmental, sustainable, and environmental, social and governance issues affecting their industry. So now all the monies or all the funding are transferred to young people, and many of these young people are interested in these three things. How is a company that I'm investing in interested in pressing the environmental, the social, and the governance issues? Because if they don't, then there is an issue where they will not have. It's the future of their own company depends on that right now, on everybody. And so for that, I think we would like to be thinking about how, again, thinking about engaging stakeholders. How do we allow companies to gain insight into pressing these ESG issues? Again, stakeholder management is quite important in really managing the ESG issue of supplier, diversity suppliers, employees, investors, and regulators need to be really engaged in that space. So, and many smart companies I know have embraced sustainability and collaboration as a business imperative. And once it is a business imperative, it's going to make it happen. There's going to be a systemic change because of that. And so for systemic change to happen, we have to have systemic solutions. And anything today cannot be driven by competitive self-interest any longer, because it shows that there is a lack of fully purposed, of fully shared purpose. And so if we don't have that and we continue on having a shortage of trust, it's going to be tough to really manage the collaboration matrix, which is about focusing all players, all the processes, and then gain some outcomes that are going to be beneficial to the advancement of a better planet, of a greener planet. And not because it's been said or it's plastered across the various companies, websites or boards or something like that, but it's an important, it's a thing that matters. That matters for our growth, that matters for our planet, that matters for our future. So how do we do that? I think, as I said earlier, in any kind of change, systemic change, we need to have an identification of our stakeholders. Who are our stakeholders? Is it only board? Is it only the shareholders? But it's also our employees. Is it also our employees or our suppliers? Is it also our suppliers, but our client? So it's a kind of thing that we need to really have an identification of our stakeholders, understand our stakeholders' expectations, define some type of engagement of the objectives and outcomes of these kinds of engagement, and then how do we tell them, or how do we communicate with these kinds of thing? And so the SDGs or the ESG is a common plan for a shared agenda that we all have to have. And while it is challenging, I know we can do it. The biggest challenge that we have right now is equity in terms of climate change and conflict.
Mm-hmm.
How many people are moving? In fact, there is a nomenclature at the UN that says people on the move. Why are people moving? Is it because of climate change, or is it because of conflict? And how is this conflict caused? And how is this climate change, issue been addressed? And also, how was it caused? The various degrees that we're thinking of changing in our exposure or work that we're trying to make sure we do it has not been addressed, and everybody's passing is sending the can down the road without really having basic standards, basic policy for future generation. We cannot compromise this any longer. I think it's important that we address these issues where the world will be able to really survive this, and we will. We have smart minds, we have generous people, a better group of young people. Young people today are the most educated humans that we have, and the ones that have more access to technology and innovation. So ESG can be done so long it is behind it there is intentionality and attention and serious consideration of some type of empirical observation that needs to happen every day.
Wonderful. Thank you. Because you started off answering this by talking about the investments and especially the younger generation. And I was, bringing up a conversation that I had with my daughter probably 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And she was telling me about she makes a lot of money doing freelancing, and she wanted to do some investment. She, being a 21-year-old, she wanted to get some advice on what should I do. Yes. And the first thing she said was, I want to make sure that I'm choosing companies which are positively impacting this planet. And she said, I'm not going to have any companies in my portfolio which is not positively contributing to the planet. I was so amazed hearing the answer, because that is consciously making a choice that every penny that I'm going to be investing is making a positive impact to the planet, not just for the current generation, for the future generations to come. And you're absolutely right. And every thing they buy, even the clothing they buy, they're making sure that it's actually contributing to the positivity of this earth. Recently, my daughter is a hardcore Starbucks fan. Until recently, she was she boycotted Starbucks just with the rest of the generations, because they're supporting a war which they do not stand for. And she, for last 3-4 months, she refuses to go to Starbucks. She says, no, my principles are more important than I can say no to it, because I don't stand for something that they are supporting. I am so impressed with this current generation, which is like, I feel that the world is much safer in their hands, because they know exactly what they want, and they support for the right causes. So you're right, it needs to be with a purpose. And I'm raising 2 children at home, a teenager and a 21-year-old, and they're very conscious, and they actually teach me every day, and I'm learning a lot every day from them, and my perspectives are changing because of them. So you're bringing up a wonderful point. The younger generation are the future for our planet, and we just have to give them the right tools, and they will make it happen. ESG can happen. It's just that we've got to make sure that we're making a conscious decisions over, along the way as well.
Absolutely. And congratulations to your daughter that she has this focused intellectual curiosity that makes me feel like, okay, I know I'm in safe hands. Now we go.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you. Yes. So moving on to the next one, personal growth and development. You've mentioned a passion for helping people meet their career potential. What strategies do you recommend for individuals looking to future-proof their careers? How do you personally stay motivated and continue to grow both professionally and personally? What resources or practices have you found most valuable for strengthening cultural competencies and leadership skills?
Yeah. Well, Sheryl Sandberg, the CIO of
Facebook.
I think there's a book called Lean In, and I think I always like to quote her, and she says, we need women at all levels, including the top, to change the dynamic, reshape the conversation, to make sure women's voices are heard and needed, not overlooked and ignored. I think kudos to Sheryl for really saying this in her role as somebody who has a high expectation for herself and for her company. But again, it all boils down to the fact that we have to have companies that are crystal clear about their core reason for being and their impact on the world. So we need to have companies that integrate purpose into their company's brand. I think it's an investment, and women have to be in those places, not only because we bring substantial value to business and teams. And again, also women of color remain vastly underrepresented in position of leadership, and often we have to navigate increased barriers to access critical development resources. And so as organizations create an inclusive culture, it is critical also that they recognize the uniqueness and multitude of lived experiences. You know, you and I have gone through different kinds of work, body of work, experiences, personal and professional, physical and not. Mm-hmm. And so we need to, I think I would like to have organizations that are really, really serious about behind and intention and attention. And, you know, when we are, leadership is all about making others feel better as a result of our presence, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
So, and again, making that impact lasts also in our absence. I mean, you want to make sure that, oh, she's here and then I work hard, and then when she's gone, I don't care. That's not the kind. So, and this is a way for us to really have the engagement of women in boardrooms. They need to be in boardrooms because their representation in board leadership is important for all of us, because when we have the diversity of thought and companies with women in leadership, I think it's known that many of them grow faster, generate more revenue, and achieve higher stock prices. And so, in the same way, like your daughter was talking about, how she's really conscious about, you know, there's a program called Conscious Capitalism, and that tells you exactly what that means. And not only to buy what we need to buy, but to also discard something that we don't need, like the fast fashion that we're talking about. And so having diverse employees in your, whether it's in your boardroom or in your classrooms or at universities or anywhere else, I know will contribute to a happier workplace. And furthermore, the most important thing is that they will benefit the bottom line. There will be more money. We will be part of that 12 trillion economic development. We will be our own. Remember how the Obama administration used to say the economic stimulus? We will be our own economic stimulus.
Exactly.
We won't need any 2,500 hours every time we have
incentive or something like that. Yes, we can be our own economic stimulus. You're absolutely right. Oh yes. My God. And you actually brought up Sheryl Sandberg. Her book I read as soon as it was published. And believe me, it's like a Bible I go to lean in, because it has taught so many things. And I made my daughter read when she was a teenager, and I told her, this is how the real world is, the corporate world that you will eventually go. And I want you to be better prepared. And I wish I had something like this when I started my career, someone to teach me what is out there. And well, you know, better late than never, right? I got that book and I read so much, and I follow her on all the social media, and I look forward to her advice every time. So people like her are contributing to this world and empowering us as women to become better humans and better leaders as well, so we can help others in you know, progress in their own careers and their lives as well. So I'm grateful that you brought that point, because it just resonated so much with me. And thank you for, you know, bringing such a valuable insight into what we need to do, what corporations can contribute to giving a much more equitable space for women in their boards and other spaces as well, so that, like you said, we don't need our 2,500 check every month. We can be our own economic stimulus. Why do we have to be dependent on someone, right? So, yeah.
Yes. And, you know, building the pipeline, I think it's important. I think there are some data out there, and, you know, data is obviously good. And it seems like we have enough data everywhere, and data has to be actionable data for me. I think it's like, you can say there is 50% here, 10% here, whatever data you're looking at. But it looks like there is a lot of information that tells us that by 2030, the United States will face a deficit of over 6 million skilled workers. So if companies do not have strategy to place and retain and develop women in the workforce, or building the pipeline by engaging the next generation of leaders, I think we're going to be at a loss. And so women are leaving businesses at an alarming rate, for example, now. So then how do we really help? How do we mitigate that risk? We want to be the future the future of the growth of our future depends on having a pipeline of engaged next generation of leaders. And so how do we do that? What are the things that we need to do? And how do we create sponsorship? How do we continue on having allyship? How do we have an inclusive organizational culture that helps us to really become a cohesive group of people that are trying to find solution for the massive challenges this planet has? One of them is inequity. The other one is obviously climate change. So I'm glad you're there and you're working on this. So
we'll all work together.
I'm in good hands.
No, we'll all work together, right? It is like we're all in this together, Tsegga. So, we all collectively can make a change. I believe in collective consciousness so much.
Absolutely.
So the next question I have for you is on collaboration and community engagement. This is something which is very, very dear and near to your heart. So I'm making sure that, we, summarize all the conversations what we've had thus far on collaboration and community engagement. Can you talk about the importance of collaboration with diverse stakeholders in advancing sustainability and equity goals? How have you engaged with public interest groups and regulatory agencies to foster change? What's your approach to building and sustaining impactful partnerships in your work?
I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think in 2015, the UN had invited me to speak on behalf of women as one of the stakeholders, and we were about 25 organizations, and I was delighted to be there. And that was part of so that was when they were trying to find the stakeholders meeting at the very beginning. What should we do for the SDG? The Sustainable Development Goal Plan 2030 were signed by 170 nations, over 170 nations in September 2015. And when I was there, it was in May 2015. And one of the biggest, the number 17, SDG 17 is about collaboration and partnership, but intentional partnership. I wouldn't want it to be a partner just because I would like to have a woman of color or an organization of that has, less access to things. I want it to be the meaning of diversity and the meaning of collaboration and partnership really go hand in hand. And I think, and it is partnership, SDG 17 for me at the Pearl Leadership Institute, it's quite emphasized because it drives future and systemic change. The private-public partnership that has to happen is essential for the changes, the systemic change that we need to have across the globe. And so forging partnership, sharing knowledge, mobilizing resources to address the global complex challenges today is only going to happen and going to be solved by working together. Together we're better. I think there's a thing that we talked about, and I think the collaboration matrix needs to be really focused on who the players are, again, what the process should be, and the outcomes will be. And the outcomes will be fine so long we are really intentional, embracing sustainability and collaboration as a business imperative. So for many, many reasons, and we don't have to be big organizations to really look at the partnership and collaboration, because when we have that insight from each other, when we have an ability to really look change as a transformative tool for all of us, that is definitely possible. And again, looking at the theory of change, of anything that we want to change, if we want to have a systemic change, we need to have a systemic solution. And that can only happen if we really bring all about partners in place and partners in the right area for us to continue, have an engaged conversation, have an engaged collaboration, have recognizing that also is quite important for us, because at this point we are living in a change era, and addressing this daily issues. One of them obviously the gender disparity for me, because I've always focused on have a gender lens focused. So the gender disparity is something we need to address. Our common future needs a common approach. it needs a continuous look at the eradication of poverty, and by creating opportunities for all, raising basic standard of living for all. It's quite important because the Sustainable Development Goal plans have a shared agenda for the world to be a better place.
Yes.
And so this is a time for all of us to have a moment, sit down at that table, whether it's about addressing climate change, addressing conflict, addressing gender disparity, addressing poverty, addressing water, addressing crops. All the things are a continuous change that need to happen only with the empowerment of all of us working together.
Absolutely. Oh my God, you just covered everything and you kind of put it neatly packed in a nutshell and you said what we have to do.
Thank you.
And, you brought up such amazing insights into what the current scenario we're facing. We're going through a major transition of change. The entire world is, in every aspect you can think about. The only way we all can navigate through this change is when we all come together as one force and take a step back and look at it. How do we address this? We're all in this together, and we've got to think about not just us, but for our future generation as well. Are we leaving this planet a much better place than we found when we came into this universe? That is the most important question we have to ask. One of the things we all have to also accept that we are all just visitors on this planet. We're not going to be here forever. So we have a moral responsibility of making sure that we leave this place a much better place for our future generations. And, just listening to you and, listening to all these profound insights that you shared with us is like amazing. Thank you so much, Tsegga. Thank you for generously dedicating your time today to share your invaluable insights and experiences with us. Your commitment to empowering change makers and advocating for gender equity in STEM has been truly, truly inspiring. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to learn from you. And I'm confident that our audience has not only gained much from this conversation, but will also be moved to take action. Your vision for a collaborative and equitable future resonates with us all. And it's conversations like these that ignite real change. Thank you for being such a catalyst for joining us in our mission to propel the planet forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I definitely have enjoyed this conversation. And I, like you, would like to continue to analyze and unravel the why behind everything, especially the one the planet needs right now. And the planet needs champions. And thank you for being the champion of that. And all the best to you and your loved ones. This has been a great moment.
Thank you. And same to you as well, Tsegga. And I'm sure you'll come back again on Planet Forward because this is not, just one podcast conversation. You have so much to share. And thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day, my dear.
You too. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Planet Forward with Preetha, conversations for a greener future. Together, we're exploring the innovations and stories that inspire us to think and act for a sustainable world. If you're inspired by today's conversation and want to be part of this journey toward a greener future, make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode filled with groundbreaking ideas and actionable solutions. Let's continue to make a difference, one episode at a time. I'm Preetha, reminding you to make every day count for our planet. Until next time, keep moving the planet forward.